There are so many people out there that don't even know that Robinhood is free. You can literally download Robinhood on your phone today, hook up your bank account, start trading today. Again, putting your money to work, at least the expendable income, rather than going out and having that $150 dinner that weekend. Putting that $150 instead in a long-term position that you can just hold. But most people, including my parents, don't invest, and they never taught me about investing.
All right, Jason Lee. Let's get into it. So I always like to give our audience a little bit of context into like where you come from in terms of like going towards being a founder and a CEO of Option Swing. And before we get into all of that, like I want to take a step back and go all the way back to your childhood, maybe some like pivotal moments, how you were brought up, and how that kind of shaped you to become this successful entrepreneur.
Wow, great question. So actually, I think one of the more personal stories I can share that really did help shape kind of who I am is dealing with my parents' divorce at a younger age. And so when my parents got divorced, one of the things that I kind of learned over that course and in that time period is that, time will continue moving forward with or without you. So it's really up to you to decide how you want to continue, living your life and doing what you want to do in life and those kind of things. And from an early age, I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I wanted to build my own path more than work someone else's.
Yeah. So like diving deeper more into the divorce, like was it like a really bad divorce? Like what lessons did you take from that?
Sure. It definitely was. I think any divorce and any child going through a parent's divorce is always a very difficult thing. But I share this because I think it's also something very relatable. It's something that a lot of people, more than people tend to realize, that people have gone through. But it's through that kind of period when you start realizing, one, you have to do things for yourself. Two, you can't just wait on anything or anyone for it to happen. You just have to kind of make your own luck and keep pushing forward. And then three, I think another kind of important thing is also the ability to learn how to create for yourself. And I think through the process of creation, one of the things that I always kind of tell people is this ABC mantra of always be creating. And the reason why I say always be creating is because through creation, it's not a pass-fail exercise. It's more of, learning and coming across problems and then finding solutions to those same problems. And through that, improving your skills and improving your knowledge, and over time, the culmination of everything that you've created. It doesn't matter if your business was successful or a failure. I think most entrepreneurs will go through tens of businesses, if not maybe even hundreds of businesses, before finding that first one that really takes off. But every single experience that they went through, good or bad, through that entire process, leads them to that moment of being able to create that first business that does actually take off the right way.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, my parents got divorced, and one of the issues that I kind of struggled with was like not being heard, because like there was a lot of fighting, and it was more so like them fighting each other, and then the kids kind of get left in the back. And so
Sure.
that's kind of what I struggled with. And that's why business was more of like, how can I be heard? How can I express myself in this way and be creative so that you can be heard? So like for you, what was that like one thing that like maybe stuck with you that was like an issue that like propelled you forward to this level of success?
Sure. I think one of the key factors is just money. Coming from a family that didn't come from any money, and growing up very humble. I was born and raised in New Hampshire. So you can think, small town in New Hampshire, probably like one of 3 Asians in the entire town, So that said, I knew from a start that the importance of money and making your own money is something that no one's just going to hand you and give you. And if you want to strive for a better life, to be able to travel, to experience new things, you have to work for it. And so that always kind of drove me forward to, through school and even after school, the necessity to make money for myself, for the ability for me to travel, for the ability for me to live life, without necessarily being the situation of surviving, from paycheck to paycheck and having to sacrifice so much just to get by.
Yeah. So when did you start thinking about money that way? Like when did you start thinking about making money? Was it in school? Like what age specifically? Because I feel like there's always like that tick moment where you're like, this ain't right, or like I'm going to school and like, you're gonna
Sure.
be led on a path to like a cap of the amount of money that you can make almost.
Sure. I kind of laugh at this because one of the things that's blown me away right now, and I look deceivingly young, but I'm 34 actually. And so working with the younger generation, the kids that are like 18 to 20, or even younger, some of the guys I worked with are still in high school. But the amount of knowledge, the technical prowess, and like the motivation to do, it's just incredible. Because at that age, it wasn't there for me. I don't even know what I was thinking about, at that time. I was just living life at that age, being a student, being a kid. But at the same time, I never thought about business. I never really thought about that until way later on. And it wasn't until 30 that I really started Option Swing, as a business. So I went through my entire 20s, working at a company and so forth. But yeah, it's just incredible that the younger generation now is so focused on doing and building. And had I have had that same motivation at that age, I probably would be in a much different position in my life now. I'm still very grateful for where I am and everything that I'm doing today. But just the fact that there are these young kids out there doing so much and accomplishing so much on their own before they're even 25 is just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. So did you like enjoy your life in your 20s and stuff? Like what was it like in your 20s? I want to dive deeper into that. Like what was like school like for you as well?
Yeah, so the things that I like to compare with the 20s and the 30s is in your 20s, it's really still not a time period where you have a lot of control in your life because you spend kind of your early 20s still in school, then you graduate school and you have to kind of find your first job, then you have to kind of work, and learn and experience and kind of do that thing. And so your 20s are really spent still kind of figuring things out, but your 30s is your first true decade that you can actually do anything you want for yourself because at that point, most people are pretty established, have been in the careers for some time, and so forth. But with the 20s, yeah, I absolutely had a great time. I went to Syracuse up in upstate New York, and so not only being able to follow college basketball, which is still a huge passion of mine, but even just after graduating and moving to New York City and being in the city there and working and living that New York City life and the hustle and bustle of everything, that also was really exciting because it also helped shape me into a lot of who I am today by working in that environment.
Yeah. So who are you working for specifically and how long?
Yeah, so I worked for a company called AvePoint, which was a Microsoft independent software vendor selling different platform solutions for their products. And then I worked for them for about 3 years. And then I worked at Salesforce right after that for about 7 years as an engineer. And then during that time is when I kind of found my way into the entrepreneurial pursuits.
Wow. So you're an engineer for like 7 to 10 years, like specifically what type of engineer?
Yeah, I started in customer support, so answering the first line of defense of all the people calling in with all the problems. But working in the post-sales environment taught me about technology and how it all works, which allowed me to then go to the pre-sales side of the business in terms of working with actual salespeople or account executives and being an engineer that can help translate the complicated technology into more layman terms. So yeah, I kind of range from everything in between.
Mm-hmm. So you went to school for that? Like how many years? Like you just got a degree?
Nope. No, not at all. So a little kind of how I fell into everything and kind of the importance of doing things for yourself more than doing it for others is when I went into Syracuse, I went in for pre-med. And so I thought I was going to be a doctor because my grandfather was a doctor and my uncle was a doctor and my aunt was also a doctor. And so my whole family was kind of filled with different doctors, back in Korea. However, as I started going through the classes and going through chemistry and physics and all that stuff, I realized I had zero passion for it. And it really showed in my grades as well. And so knowing that I couldn't finish school doing something that I absolutely just hated, the next best thing for my parents was, hey, if you're not going to be a doctor, then you should be a lawyer because you're a great talker and lawyers are very professional, so go that path. And so I switched over to a US history major and pre-law, and I went and I actually graduated and was getting ready to take the LSATs when I was doing an internship with a lawyer, and he kind of gave me the best advice I could have received at that time, which was one, why am I actually doing this, in terms of being a lawyer? And I think one of the critical things that he kind of shared with me was that him personally was very unhappy being a lawyer. And he said that the only reason why he was still doing this job is because he had such a high law school bill and debt to pay that this is the only job he can take right now that will give him that kind of salary that he can pay it. But otherwise, he's absolutely miserable, in his job every single day. And that to me kind of scared me, because I was like, I'm definitely not doing it for the passion of law. I'm kind of doing it because my parents are telling me it's the next best professional thing I should be doing. So again, it kind of hit me there. The other thing he kind of told me was, when you look at kind of a lawyer and what they have to do to eat, to actually close business and do things, he kind of told me in the way of like a hunter, right? As a hunter, you have to track the animal and then go after it and then hunt it and then, kill it and then skin it and eat it and cook it and everything, right? It's like this entire process just to get to the end product of eating. Whereas as a doctor, you literally sit there and all of the food is just literally brought to you, and you don't even have to move from your desk or from your place. And when he kind of phrased it in that way, I realized what I do in my career is extremely important, because you only have so many hours in a day to do things. So as a lawyer, or as any profession that requires me to be heavily invested in time because I'm running around trying to do everything, versus a business where I just build and sit and everything comes to me, the difference is, night and day, in terms of scaling and the size of businesses that you see. All the largest businesses are the ones where customers come to them, not them reaching out, outbounding, trying to build that way.
Yeah, 100%. I think obviously you struggled from like the parents' expectations and like, them wanting you to do certain career paths and stuff. What advice would you give to people who are in a similar situation? Because I feel like so many people struggle with that, and they take advice from their parents. They don't really have anyone else to take advice from, because their parents are the closest ones, and then the other ones are their friends who don't know what they're doing either, and they're probably listening to their parents. So it's just like a reoccurring cycle. So what type of tips or advice would you give to those type of people?
This is a mantra that my dad, always used to tell me. And it was, be patient, stand tall, and do your best. And so I think as long as you follow those three things at whatever age, whatever period you are in, whatever time you are in your life at that moment, as long as you are willing to still keep your head high, as long as you're willing to be patient and still work hard towards making change and making a better life for yourself, and as long as you just continue striving for better, that's just the best things you can do, because mentality and mental fortitude is so important with the health of a person and also the health of a business. And as a leader, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as someone who wants to potentially build their own business, the mental fortitude has to be incredibly strong, because there's going to be tons of different problems that are going to come up in situations and events that are just going to take you on a roller coaster of a ride. And so if you don't have that mental fortitude to be able to ride the highs and ride the lows without going too crazy, along that, then you're going to end up becoming a really great leader.
Yeah. No, it's kind of like what Alex Hormozy says. I think he says, slowly progressing without fatally regressing. It's pretty much the game of life. And if you can do that, then you're doing all right for yourself.
Exactly.
Going from your engineering side of things, like I'm interested in terms of like what that click was to switch over to entrepreneurship, to becoming a founder, to becoming a CEO, right? Because like that's like, there are two different types of mindsets: employee mindset and boss mindset. So I'm interested to see like what if there was like a click moment, or like a moment of like, I need to move on from this and be my own boss.
Oh yeah. There was several pivotal points, I would say, that kind of led to me deciding to take on entrepreneurship full time and leave my very comfortable job, at Salesforce. And one of them was the reason why I actually came to Salesforce in the first place, which was being at AvePoint. It was a great company that gave me a lot of opportunities, but it was also one of those companies at the time that I just couldn't grow any further at, one of those glass ceilings type of situations. And when I kind of got frustrated because I realized that it was just not going to go anywhere and they were just going to keep me there year over year without really making any change, I realized that I needed to make that change myself. And so I looked online on LinkedIn. I saw that there was a job posting for Salesforce for their New York office. And I was familiar with that company and their technology, and the role was exactly what I was already doing for AvePoint, so why not apply? And by some sheer stroke of luck, I get a response back, and I go through this entire 3-month, 11 interview process, and I come to find out that it's because they're building the very first team in New York for the SMB business, the small to mid-sized business segment, and they're hiring their first engineer for it. So they want to really vet someone who will be able to come in and not only grow that segment, but then also help grow a team as that team continues to get bigger. So as I came into Salesforce, as I was somehow, hired, my life changed, right? Like salary alone, they doubled it. My benefits, now stock options, the opportunities and the companies I was working with in Manhattan, with these like huge startups, it was incredible. So that to me was a pivotal moment of realizing how much a company can do good for an employee and change an employee's life. And everything that I have today, a lot of the clothes that I have today, everything like that is not from me, necessarily from option swing, and that's where I made all my money, and that's why I'm living a life like this. All of my stuff, everything that I had is all from Salesforce. It's during that time, over the 7 years of building my career there, and everything that they opened up in terms of opportunities and possibilities and my standard of living and everything, So that was a very unconscious indicator in my mind that there is a tremendous amount of good that a company can do if done in the right way. So then comes kind of how did I get into the entrepreneurship side and what kind of kicked me forward in terms of deciding to leave that, the tech world behind. And what I realized was I have a lot of hobbies and a lot of passions just naturally. I think everyone does. And one of those hobbies just happened to be trading. And I used to just trade a lot in my off hours. And just through that, I had my close network of friends start asking me, hey, Jason, can you show me how Robinhood works? Because I'm interested in learning how to invest a bit. Hey, could you show me how Webull or Thinkorswim, or how are you trading, or what are you looking at, or teach me a little bit about the markets. And so it went from me kind of teaching one to then teaching a few more to then kind of realizing, hey, there's enough interest here of people wanting to learn from me that I could probably create some kind of education business out of this. But I still need to figure out how to scale myself, because I can't just be meeting one-on-one with everyone and texting everyone, trying to teach and expect to still have time for everything else. So that's when I created my Instagram channel. And from that Instagram channel, I was able to build kind of a following. From that following, I was able to kind of identify that there's still more and more customers that wanted to sign up for this potential educational business. And then from there, I decided to kind of launch that business. And we can probably get into that a little bit more in the podcast because there's a whole deeper story behind it. But one of the things kind of going back to the pivotal moments is as I was building Option Swing, as the business was growing very quickly, we went from $0 to 1 million in our first 10 months of business. And I was still working full time at Salesforce at the time. And so you can imagine the size and growth of a startup or whatever you want to call it to get to that size and the number of customers while trying to run that while trying to still run everything that I'm doing at Salesforce. So at that point I realized, man, I need help. I need to hire someone in to help delegate some of these things that I can't be doing all the time. So I bring one person in. And this person is just in the community all the time because our business is based inside of Discord. So inside of that Discord server, there's certain members that are always just engaging, always just part of the conversation, always helping out new members. And I tapped one of them on the shoulder and said, hey, you're already doing this every day anyway. Can I please just pay you a little bit and you come in more full time and actually do more with us, which obviously they were super stoked about. And as they kind of started working and doing more, and I gave them more responsibility, and they did better and better and better, I started obviously paying them more to the point where they went from being a part-time to a full-time. And then over the course of a year and year and a half and 2 years that they're working with us, I see their life changing because of the business that I've built. And that very unconscious indicator suddenly clicked for me of, wow, not only did I receive kind of that, benefit of working at Salesforce and how a company is changing my life, but I'm now paying it forward unintentionally by having my own business that I'm building, being able to drive revenue through it and hire good people and help change their lives for the better. And so that's when I realized, okay, I need to be a founder and an entrepreneur and do this more full time, because this is where my true passion lies in terms of helping people, more so than just being an individual contributor at a large corporation.
Yeah, wow, that's impactful. So you're doing trading while you're doing Salesforce, you're obviously getting results with trading. Like, how does that look? Like, how did you pick it up? How did you learn it? And how were you able to get results enough so that you felt comfortable going into the education business, actually teaching people? Because I feel like you have to have some level of results to even feel confident enough without having that imposter syndrome and that feeling of oh, am I even good enough to teach people?
Yeah, 100%. So how it started was very early on, right after I graduated school, when I was working at AvePoint. To this day, he's still one of my best friends, but he actually was my manager, my hiring manager and my manager at the time. And he taught me about trading initially, because I had no idea about that world, and I didn't even know it was possible for someone like me who just got out of school to even invest. I was just thinking big money, big hedge funds probably do that, but I don't know where individuals come in. But he showed me about penny stocks, and he showed me, hey, for even $100, you can buy 10,000 shares, and with this, you just hold it, you look at the news. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least, you're doing something with some of that money. So I was like, okay. And so he started teaching me, and I learned the ropes. And he tried to teach me options trading at the time, but that was just way over my head, and I couldn't figure it out. So I kind of, moved on from that. But I always just did equities trading and penny stock trading and those kind of things. And then it took probably, fast forward 5 years, 6 years, and probably 5 years, and then at that point, Robinhood started getting really popular. And at that time, I was already investing and doing just long-term equities and kind of building out my portfolio. But Robinhood comes out in this super slick UI, very clean, very easy to use, 0% commission, and then they have options trading on it. And so I'm looking at options trading, and I'm like, okay, it makes it more simple, green for calls, red for puts. I kind of get the basic idea of these strike prices, and I had to do obviously a lot of research on my own and enablement, but a lot of it kind of made sense. But what didn't make sense to me, or at least what kind of clicked for me, was these contract prices. Because some of these contract prices are 25 cents, 50 cents, 70 cents, $1, etc. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, how is this possible for these large cap companies to be trading these contracts at cents for the dollar, and some of these returns that are happening are just absurd, because you will have a 25-cent contract maybe just double to 50 cents, in a matter of a day, just because the stock's up 4%. So when I started realizing that the options trading was the more legitimate world of penny stock trading, that's when I knew I wanted to move everything away from penny stocks, because that was always an unknown. That's like over the counter. They're unknown companies, and they're small for a reason. But now I'm looking at Amazon, I'm looking at Microsoft, I'm looking at AMD and all these other stocks, and I'm like, wow, there's the ability for me to buy contracts at cents on the dollar still, but still the returns, are phenomenal like penny stocks, but they're more feasible because I have the ability to research public data. Whereas again, private, those penny stocks don't really have all that. So it took a lot of time. It took a lot of mistakes. I definitely blew accounts in the beginning, just going through it. And thankfully I had a nice job from Salesforce to help me, replenish all that. But as I started kind of getting the hang of it, I realized that for me, day trading wasn't the move, because my stress and my anxiety and all that stuff was just not, meant for it. It was long-term leaps and buying longer-term contracts. And as I started playing more longer swings, and then just doing that, through that I was actually able to get some pretty phenomenal kind of trades. One of them being NVIDIA. And that one was like probably close to $80,000 return on buying just these contracts at the beginning of the year. I looked at NVIDIA and was sitting at its 52-week low, and I knew that for sure over time it's going to go back up. So why not buy expirations for next year, like a year and a half out, And at that time, I bought way out the money strikes, and just bought the contracts and then just held it. And then as the year, as the month progresses and as 2 months progress and 3 months progress, it kind of slowly starts moving. And then the fourth and the fifth month starts really moving. And by the sixth and seventh month, the thing is just, multi-thousand multiples up, and I'm just holding that being like phenomenal, So it's through that I realized, again, people need to learn the importance of multiple streams of income, because your regular 9 to 5, especially in today's day and age with inflation being so crazy and the cost of living being so crazy, the 9 to 5 job is not necessarily enough to really get you ahead. It's enough to get you by, but it's not enough to necessarily get you ahead. And that's why if you have the idea of multiple streams of income, where as a trader, if you can enable yourself to learn how to take these long-term positions, be able to just buy and hold over the next few months, at least that money is going to work without you actually manually going outside and standing in the sun and doing anything, to get a return on that investment. It's just through your phone, and the ability to just purchase and walk away and come back 3 months later and hopefully see it up. So that, is how people get ahead, is having those multiple streams that they can rely on, not just their paycheck from their 9 to 5.
Yeah. So going into specifics, like how much did you lose at the start when you're starting out? And then like, what was the point where you actually started getting that money? Like how much was that? And then at what point in terms of how many wins did you have where you were like, okay, I could probably start an education business around this because I'm good enough and I could definitely teach people how to do this?
Yeah. My best year was 2018, which led me into 2019, which is when I started the education business. But in 2018, I started with, so actually backing up in terms of initially the losses, I always would trade small. So I'd always open up like a $1,000 account, $2,000 account, and then just kind of trade with that, see what happens. Sometimes it worked really well and I withdrew some of that money and I went on vacation, and then sometimes it didn't work out well, and then I would sometimes blow that account. So I would always keep it to about $1,000 to $2,000 because I was still trying to figure out what the hell's going on, and why is this contract either going to zero or why did this suddenly go up? And I was still learning, the whole Greeks and all of that kind of stuff. But in 2018, it started with about, I think it was like $2,500. And I documented this entire journey. That's actually one of the ways I was able to help kind of, create that rapport for my educational business, is by having all that proof and documenting that journey of what I did during that time. But I'm pretty sure it was just around $2,500 when I first started. And by the end of the year, I ended right about $460,000 in that account.
Wow. 1 year.
In 1 year.
You. That's crazy. Okay, yeah, that's definitely enough confidence to start your own education business for sure.
Exactly. And again, I'm not saying, I'm a guru, and again, I really hate that profile. You'll never see me flexing, any cars or anything like that, like you do with some of these, influencers out there, because it's not about, yes, I was able to do it, so the validation is there. But the point isn't like, oh, I'm some phenomenal trader that you need to follow me, or else I'll just open up my own hedge fund, to be quite frank. The idea is that there are so many people out there that don't even know that Robinhood is free, that you can literally download Robinhood on your phone today and hook up your bank account, start trading today. And again, putting your money to work, I'm not, at least the expendable income, but putting that money to work rather than going out and having that $150 dinner, that weekend. And putting that $150 instead in something like a long-term position that you can just hold for however many times. Again, the longer term is that you'll work out better, with that kind of knowledge and with that kind of discipline. But most people, including my parents, don't invest, and they never taught me about investing. And I think most people will kind of experience that too, where their parents, probably never taught them about investing or necessarily, personal finance, and all those skills. And so a lot of times people just have to figure it out on their own and go through a lot of mistakes through life and, all these things. But if someone can teach you that faster, if someone can point it out to you and just show you and make it a lot simpler for you to understand that, then to me, that's worth it,
Yeah. So for that person that we'd be speaking to in terms of they have a job, they have an income, is there a specific amount of income or money set aside or money to invest that like is a good amount that they could start with, or that like people, could utilize?
Sure. So the beautiful thing is that with trading and investing, there's something called paper trading. And paper trading, for those that are not familiar, especially on an app like Thinkorswim, is there is a toggle that you can toggle between live trading and paper trading. The app is identical, but obviously one is with virtual funds and fake funds versus one with a real money account. The thing that I really don't like is that a lot of people knock on paper trading. And they say, oh, it's not real trading. Oh, I can't take it seriously, or I can't do. If that's the mentality, how do you expect to do that with real money when you actually have the funds in your account? So if you don't have the discipline to treat this in a very serious manner, because it is your money, and I think a lot of people, again, you see like Wall Street bets where people have these stupid losses, of like 200,000, $500,000 sometimes, in terms of these massive losses that they have. And it's because people don't know when to stop, and at that time it becomes almost an addiction. No normal person, can rightfully lose $500,000, that of money they probably don't, necessarily have, in terms of extra funds, just to throw away like that. But it's crazy, so yeah, I just think it's really important that people with paper trading learn how to use an app first and foremost, because there's so many mistakes that happen where, I like fat fingered this and I didn't mean to buy this one, but it still went through, and oh crap. If you don't know how to use the app properly, again, take the time to learn, And then number 2 is use virtual funds. So that way you're not risking any of your real money to start. And one of the biggest and most important things for any trader is to build what I call the confidence, like the trader's confidence. And are you a trader by chance, Jackson? Like, do you ever invest or anything like that?
Yeah, I invest, but like, I mean, I do more of like the long-term investing, more so on the crypto side of things. And so
Sure.
less on like stocks and options and stuff, and less on the short term. Like I'm not doing short term or running businesses, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But that's the beautiful thing about the longer term trading as well. You can do that 9 to 5 and still have the ability to come home and do that type of trading. Like you wouldn't be able to do that with day trading.
No, exactly. And that's why, again, just kind of going back to it, don't use real funds to start. Use virtual funds. Learn, how it works. Build up that trader's confidence, where as you start, making plays or buying positions, and as you start learning how it works, and as you exit these positions and you start learning, okay, I've had several, good trades under my belt, you start building that trader's confidence. There's obviously also the other side, which is when you become too overconfident. That's when people start throwing too much money in and start going against all of the things that they know they should be doing. But the bottom line is, with a paper account, you can build up that trader's confidence, really start being like, okay, I know what I'm doing, I understand what I'm doing, and then switch over to the real account and start trading. But again, I just see far too many people where they don't necessarily have the expendable income to be doing this, but they go and they load up $2,000 into the Robinhood account, and they still don't know what they're doing, but they're just blindly kind of trading, and boom, they wipe account, and then they load another $2,000 in, and they kind of do something, and boom, wipes it out, and then they put in another 2,000, and now they're getting to this hole where that's how people end up getting these massive overtime losses.
Yeah, and like the virtual funds is kind of like a internship where you're not getting paid.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're obviously going to take an internship seriously, so like why wouldn't you take that seriously?
I'm going to steal that next time, Jackson. I really like how you phrased that.
Yeah, I just thought, I'm like, well, that's probably a good one. Going to your education business, so like when that launched, after you did this huge year in 2018, what did that look like? Like that was like totally new to you, I'm assuming, like social media and everything like that, like how you were going to, market and everything. So how did that start, and how were you able to get that going and succeed?
Sure. In the start, it was just by myself, designing my own posts, putting out my own education on Instagram, and kind of building that follower base. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, in the first month, we got about 1,000 followers, all organic. By the second month, we got about 2,000 followers, all organic. And at that point, I started getting a lot of questions about Discord. Hey, what's your Discord invite? What's your server link? All of this kind of stuff. At the time, I wasn't so familiar with Discord because I knew very loosely that video gamers were using it to some capacity. But I was looking at the platform, and then I kind of realized you can do text, audio, video, you can live stream classes in there every week. You can make the server private, so you can really build enough value and resources into this place to justify charging a subscription. But then the other side is, how do you actually get someone from your website to a checkout screen, authenticating and collecting that payment, sending them into a Discord server in the matter of 30 seconds, and then hopefully applying permissions automatically, to that user so they can see everything. And then in addition to that, how do you also give them the self-service options, where rather than them coming to you all the time saying, hey Jackson, how do I cancel? Hey Jackson, how do I update my payment method? And all this kind of stuff, having the self-service portal to be able to do that all on their own. So looking out there, for what's available for Discord, Patreon is something that people tend to use a lot of, which is the web-based, subscription platform. But on the other side, it doesn't integrate to Discord. So now I need to take one or two bots inside of Discord, kind of, rig them together, and then I can kind of build some sort of process. But if one bot goes down, the whole system goes down. So that I can't scale and run a business through. Then on the other side, there's bots, where there's some of these other competitors out there like Launchpass or WAP or Upgrade Chat or any of these kind of guys, and they use a lot of bots. And with the bots, what you have to understand is these aren't intelligent bots, and so when a person is going to sign up for your Discord service, they probably don't even have a Discord account to begin with. So not only are you asking them to create a Discord account and download this app and join the server, but then you tell them to go talk to a bot to try to authenticate your key and get access and all this stuff, and people can't figure it out. So it ends up inevitably creating customer support cases. And sure, it takes 15 minutes to resolve one case, but when you're trying to scale a business and you have 100 people there and 20 of them are support cases, every night you're going to be, spending hours just doing post-sales activity when you should really be focusing on scaling, and growing. So I ended up taking that engineering knowledge that I built over time, especially with Salesforce and kind of the platform that they had built, and decided to take a developer who thankfully became our CTO and is still today, our CTO. But together, him and I, we designed an entire platform that would allow you to do exactly that. Integrate a payment processor, integrate Discord, integrate your website, create a checkout flow, automatically do all the permission assignments and self-service portal. And we launched Option Swing as the very first business on that build. And that is literally how we scaled from 0 to $1 million in that first 10 months, is because we could literally throw as many people as we wanted into the checkout process and convert them without having any bottleneck. And I think that's the importance of using the proper technology, especially when you're focusing on scaling your business, is that you can't have technology be the bottleneck. You can't be making people jump through so many hoops just to get to your end goal, right? The easier and the more frictionless you make it, the higher conversion you'll have. So at that point, as long as the technology works and everything's funneling, then I can just focus all my efforts on marketing and then driving just, inbound.
Yeah. And that's what you were doing through Instagram. Like, I'm interested how that scaled up. You said 1K followers in the first month, 2K in the second. So over the 10 months, I'm assuming Instagram was the main driver in terms of the conversion to Discord, and then from Discord, the conversion to the sale.
Yeah. And even to this day, sadly, Instagram is pretty much our main converter. We now have 433,000 followers on our account. So we definitely scaled it over the last 4 years. But that said, in terms of the content, a lot of it, we had to focus on creating a lot of engaging content, because obviously people will not leave likes or comments or engage with your content if it's not engaging back. So focusing on a lot of that stuff, that helped a lot. And really the market boom of COVID happening was another huge driver for that growth, because as soon as COVID hit and the markets dropped, everyone knew, the mantra, buy low, sell high, and everyone was flocking to the stock markets to be like, how do I take some of this money that I have saved up and put this somewhere in the market right now? And so that we were an extreme benefiter from, and that also helped boost, our growth very quickly during those months.
Yeah. So did you dabble in any other social media platforms, or you just stay on Instagram? Because I know TikTok came about,
Sure.
You got YouTube that you could have been doing as well, and then some others, or was it just
Sure.
Instagram?
It's always mainly been Instagram. Over the last year, we understood the importance of diversifying and having more audiences. So we started working on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Reels and even Twitter and so forth. So now we have a more bigger, not like a huge presence yet, but we have a bigger presence. On TikTok, we just had our first video that crossed 200,000 views, and stuff like that. So definitely starting to gain some more traction on some of those other places. But yeah, I think for any person, it's important to start in a niche first and then control that niche and then continue expanding outwards. But if you try to expand too quickly, then you're always going to be eaten alive by too many competitors.
Yeah. What was their competitors when you started up? And like, how did you differentiate yourself from them?
Oh, absolutely. There was always these OG traders out there.
With the Lambos.
One who Oh yeah. Another gentleman by the name of Umar Ashraf. He's also a long-term trader and very well known in that space. And looking at kind of what he was building also helped inspire a lot of what I wanted to build, on my front with education. But the possibilities of what he was doing was what really inspired me, because of just like the size and the reach and the personal brand that he had built, and seeing that being like, okay, there's definitely something in this creator economy space worth investigating versus, a lot of people who just kind of look at the creator economy space and, don't think much of it.
Yeah. No, I want to dive more into that because I think that's like a huge thing. Like when you're starting something new, like looking for like kind of like mentor figures. I mean, now you have social media where you can find those type of people, but you like dive into like those mentors or like people in your life that influenced you or helped you grow. That could be like through the content or like your personal life.
Sure. I think through my personal life, and Ty Lopez actually said this in a TED Talk, and it really resonated with me, but it's called the Law of 33. And it's how you're supposed to spend your time with mentors. 33% of your time needs to be spent with people that are below you, that are trying to achieve what you're already doing today. And 33% of your time should be spent with people who are on the same level, building, and those people are going to become, your support group. And the final 33% of your time should be spent with people who are, way in front of you. And that way they become your mentors in a way and help you improve, at a faster rate. And so in terms of mentors, I've definitely had some very phenomenal mentors in my life. I think one of the mentors that I would love to call out is Mansoor Chatty. He was actually my first manager at Salesforce. Also the person who, changed my life by offering me that opportunity to work there. But one of the things that I learned from him is the importance of a leader doing, right? Because I think it was very easy for him to have just said, hey, Jason, go sit down, go spin this up, go figure this out on your own, go jump on this call by yourself for the first time, go talk to this customer for your first time, all this kind of stuff. But he was so big on enablement. He was so big on sitting with me at all times of the hours of the day and sit with me to build out that demo org and show me how he would build it and show me little tips and tricks, to make this a little faster and make, different things resonate more. And so he was a huge influence in terms of making me a better leader and how I work with people to enable them more so than enabling myself. And then I've just had such phenomenal, folks around my life. And I think a lot of my earlier life was spent with people obviously ahead of me. And so I think that's really important kind of in your 20s to be spending a lot of your time, with people who are ahead, because again, you're going to prove at a faster rate by learning from people who have done it. But as you start getting older, into your later 20s, you start to find that middle group of people who are kind of around the same level, and you kind of filter out those that want to be founders versus not want to be founders and have families, and again, nothing wrong with being a founder and having families, but again, it's extremely difficult to start a business while trying to care for, a new family at the same time. It's just, I would never wish that on anyone, So, yeah, just the way you spend your time with mentors, is incredibly important towards your personal development. And again, just, I feel very grateful for having very strong people in my life throughout working at Salesforce and AppPoint and, and even in my businesses today of people that I met, that have helped teach me so many new things.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Do you have any, do you have any like big points of adversity in your journey that were just like memorable, or like points where you're like, damn, like I didn't think I was going to get through this?
Yeah, dude, all the time. I would say like one of the big moments was that AF point kind of departure, and that being a very pivotal moment of being frustrated in my life and knowing that I wanted to create change. But I was worried because I was also being paid a salary, obviously not a very good one, but when you're living in New York and you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have that freedom of just being able to go without a few months of pay while you're looking for a job. You know, you really need to kind of look for that next job right away and move right into that role so you don't skip too many weeks of pay. So at that time, you know, the decision to leave in search and go through that interview process and thankfully be hired, but that was a huge pivotal moment. And then another pivotal moment was when I started stressing out a lot because the workload was becoming too much between OptionSwing and Salesforce. And that was my pivotal moment of deciding when I want to leave and leave my tech career behind so that I could focus fully on my business. And the two big key factors kind of in there was, one, my health was deteriorating rapidly. And so because I was sleeping very few hours, waking up at all times of the night and pouring like, you know, 100 plus hours a week into just both things that I'm doing. Because Salesforce was also busy, you know, it's obviously a very large corporation. So just trying to balance all that. And what I realized was that I had something so great on my hands with what I was doing with OptionSwing. And at the time I was itching to start my second business, which was Ternary Developments, which I also did create and still run today. But I knew that I wanted to kind of pursue this now more than ever, just because this is a better time than when I'm later in my years and I maybe have a family or I'm more tired, you know, at the end of the day. So thankfully at the time I was making enough revenue from OptionSwing, having grown so quickly that I was able to decide, you know, that I would be able to at least kind of still keep my standard of living to a certain extent, but be able to work full time on my business. So I decided at that point to leave Salesforce and do that. And that's when we scaled from, you know, $1 million to $1.5 million, because now I had a lot more time to really focus on doing more projects and really pushing things forward. And then from there, you know, starting Ternary Developments and building that company out. And then, yeah, you know, it's been phenomenal so far, to say the least.
Yeah. So do you wish that you left Salesforce earlier, or do you think it worked out well?
I think I'm a true believer that everything happens for a reason. So I'm glad everything happened the way it did, and I don't think I left, you know, too soon or too late. I think I left at the right time.
Yeah, and it allowed you to scale the business like way more once
Exactly.
you did. Well, what are your thoughts on like juggling those like two things? I mean, now you have two businesses, you said. So like, do you think if you cut off one of them, the other one would be able to do better? Because like that's a big thing among entrepreneurship. You know, you're starting new things and you're kind of like, it's all taking a little bit of your attention and then a little more. And so like, so where's that period where it's just like, let's just do this?
Sure. So I always kind of struggle with that because the two companies that I have, one is a educational business in Discord, and the other one is a B2B SaaS platform. They're two completely different businesses, and they have two completely different sets of employees and different sets of challenges and problems. And so that is challenging, you know, to deal with. But the great thing about it is that both are intertwined in a positive way, because as I mentioned kind of earlier in the story with OptionSwing, we didn't know how to convert people into a Discord server and collect those payments, so we built our own platform in-house that enabled us to do so. And when I left Salesforce and when I looked at what we built with OptionSwing, and I realized how all of that was enabled by the in-house software that we built, you know, sitting in a back closet somewhere, I realized it'd be such a shame to just leave that there. And there's tens of thousands of other Discord businesses out there that could use a CRM and use a platform to help manage, you know, subscriptions and customer data. And so I inevitably created Ternary Developments as its own B2B SaaS platform and company, and, you know, went that way. So in a lot of ways, OptionSwing funds Ternary because we use Ternary to process all the payments for OptionSwing. And as OptionSwing does well, Ternary does well. But through that, we've also been able to then drive more business, and we've been able to capture a little over 100 plus Discord servers to this date. I think it's only been about 2.5 years that we've been in business on the Ternary side, but we've already done 10 million plus in revenue on behalf of our customers. So just the opportunities that are out there in terms of building virtual businesses and subscription businesses and using the creator economy, to further your life is out there.
Yeah. So pretty much what you're saying is like a new business makes sense if it complements your current business, because like you said, you have all these like different systems for this one, but it's complementing the original one. If it was like two separate and like completely separate, there's no correlation, then it might get a little bit more of a distraction.
That's exactly right, Jackson.
Yeah. So how would you define success?
Ooh.
Like, is it money? Is it passion? Is it what you're doing? Is it your relationships?
It's really tough because success means different things to different people. And for me, I think in terms of success, I think there's 3 areas of life that need to be balanced. And if you can balance all 3 areas, then you are successful. What I mean by that is the first area is your finances. If you can figure out how to build a career in your finances and be financially secure and stable, and that is balanced, that frees up a lot of mental energy, right? Because people who don't have their finances balanced, who are in a lot of debt or scraping by, these kind of things, they don't have the mental energy to expend on other areas, of their life to create that balance. And so oftentimes that imbalance creates a lot of problems, So finances and finding balance there is one. The second one is your ultimate why, your passion, kind of what fulfills you. And through that, it could be, you volunteering, it could be you building a business and hiring employees and changing their lives. It could be you working at a company and working up the ranks and changing other employees' lives. There's all different areas that you can look in terms of why, but you have to find that. And I think a lot of people go through life still questioning, what is the meaning? Why am I here? What am I doing? And if you have that imbalance of not understanding that, then again, it creates a lot of problems. And then the final area is your significant other. Significant other could be a man or a woman or what have you, but having a partner that you can go through in life with. And again, I think it's incredibly important to have a support structure and have someone there who sees the good, the bad, and the ugly, and is still there for you. And if you can find that balance of a significant other who creates that support for you, and now you have your significant other, now you have your finances secure, now you have a passion that you're pursuing, you have your why and a purpose, that is success, in my opinion, having that true balance across the 3. And that's why it's so hard for people to find success, is because at least one of those 3 areas is in imbalance.
Yeah, 100%. What about health? Do you think health is in there? There's probably a few extra.
Health is, health is a major one. They always say, a healthy person wishes for 100 things, and an unhealthy person wishes for only one. So health has to be a critical thing that people focus on.
Because you were saying you were at Salesforce and running option swings, and you were not getting any sleep. You probably felt like shit. How long were you doing that for?
Ooh, it was bad. There was probably a good 1.5 to 2 month period that I was just waking up with night sweats, in a pool of sweat, around me, even with the air conditioning turned on and the ceiling fan turned on and everything. Just waking up with the night sweats, and it was terrible. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. And that was probably the worst part of your journey, those 2
It
months.
was. But I'll share almost kind of this one final story in terms of how I was able to actually climb out of that. Because thankfully I'm not living like that still today, or else I'd be, very unhappy. But what it took me was, it took me a moment to really sit down by myself on a Friday evening and sit there with my thoughts. And I think that's something that people kind of talk about, which is meditation and the ability to kind of sit there, and kind of think through your thoughts. And a lot of people don't listen to their thoughts. They almost distract their thoughts so they don't have to think about it. And so they watch TV or listen to music or do everything else but take the time to actually sit and meditate and self-reflect on what's going on. So that Friday, I knew no one's gonna bother me. Everything was done for work, and it was in the evening. So I sat there with my dog and I just kind of put on a little music and I was just sitting there, and I forced myself to just sit there with my thoughts and not distract myself, otherwise. And I started getting anxious because I started thinking about work. I started thinking about some of these problems, and I was trying to push it down because I was like, wait, no, don't want to feel these feelings right now. It's Friday night. I just want to chill with my dog. I just want to, again, just have some thought, like kind of just reflect and just kind of see. But I didn't like this anxious feeling that was starting to boil up with me. But it kept coming and it kept coming. And then at that point, I realized, you know what, I need to just, accept it and actually just dig deeper into what these thoughts are that I'm having and kind of understand why, I'm feeling about this. So I organized my problems, we'll call it, into 3 categories. There's the first category, which is problems that I have no control over that I need to just get rid of. So an example of this, not saying it's true, but example could be I'm 5'7", I wish I was taller, and I wish I was 6 foot. Obviously, I'm not going to grow anymore. So that kind of, problem or whatever, is in that category, I need to let that problem go and just move on from it. The second problem kind of column is problems that I have, but with enough patience and hard work will resolve themselves on their own. So an example of that could be something like credit card debt. People deal with credit card debt all the time. But if you stop spending and you actually pay more than your minimums, you will work yourself out of it, and over time, it will fix itself. So again, what are my problems that are falling into just be patient, and over time, with hard work, they'll fix themselves. And then the last column was problems that I have today that I can do something about today. So if I'm feeling overweight and I want to lose some weight, literally today I can start going to the gym and make a difference about it. So as I started writing all my problems into each one of these 3 categories, things actually started making more sense to me. This isn't as big of a thing as I thought it was. I should probably just let this go. I need to start doing this tomorrow. And as soon as I got into that right mindset, I kid you not, I did not have the night sweats again after that point, and I slept a lot better. I obviously reorganized my life and did certain things differently, but that moment of actually sitting with your thoughts and allowing yourself to kind of dive into them, and whether it's, whatever it may be, but in my situation, just classifying those problems and organizing it just helped me kind of almost rewire my brain in a better way.
No, that's a gem right there, for sure. Okay, so last question. What's the goal? What's the next 5-year goals? What does it look like? How I like to frame it is like your bio now compared to what your bio is going to be in 5 years.
Sure. So bio now is, I'm an entrepreneur, 2X founder, building 2 phenomenal businesses in the creator economy. 5 years from now, I hope I have at least 1 exit under my belt. That would be really nice. But more importantly is still doing what I love. And as long as I'm still building my businesses and still traveling the world, because right now, I know you didn't ask this, but I'm actually in Ecuador right now doing the whole digital nomad thing. And so I get to travel the world. I do short-term Airbnb rentals. As long as they have Wi-Fi and they're in a good time zone, I can literally run my businesses from anywhere. So for me in 5 years, if I still have that freedom in life and I'm still exploring, then I know that I'm doing the right things.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the 5 years is just pretty much keep going, keep growing. Sometimes hard to have an exact point of what 5 years will look like. But I think an exit's a pretty good plan.
Exactly. Work towards something like that, but in the meantime, just keep traveling, keep exploring life and enjoying it. Because a lot of times people forget about that journey too, and people are so focused on the end result and the end goal and how to get there faster that their life obsesses around how do we build faster, how do we grow faster, how do we get more customers faster, and they stress themselves out. And they get there eventually someday, hopefully, but you also realize you wasted a lot of time not enjoying those little things. And I think one of the things that people always kind of share on their deathbed, sadly, is that they wish they didn't work so much and spent more time in life doing other things and spending more time with family. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, one more. For young entrepreneurs looking to get into trading or that space, what would be like one tip, like number one tip that you'd give to them?
There are so many free resources out there, so don't spend money. Go on YouTube, look for certain creators that you like following and learning from. There's no perfect strategy or perfect formula. You have to learn a little bit from everyone, and from there formulate your own conclusions. No one person is going to teach you everything the right way, and be the perfect solution. So use your resources around you. There's just too many free things for you to be paying for hundreds of dollars for classes.
Boom. That's it. All right. Thanks for being on, Jason Lee. That was awesome. You shared a bunch of value there.
I appreciate it, Jackson, for having me. And again, thank you for making me a guest speaker.